Before Eden, before the first breath of man, before time had meaning or stars had names, there was a silence so complete it crushed everything that came after. And in that silence, something existed, not a being, not a place, but a will, a singular presence, the source. It did not exist within the void. It was the void, and all that lay beyond. And from its infinite solitude, the source released the first thought. That thought burned through the formless dark, carving out existence. And from this divine whisper came the first light, a light that was not fire nor sun, but awareness. With that awareness came creation. The firstborn of this creation were not human. They were not mortal. They were the celestials, the host of heaven, the angels, beings of function, of order, of purpose. They were not created to love. They were created to obey. And among them stood the greatest, Hellel, the morning star, the bringer of light. He was the pattern of perfection. His wings spanned horizons of existence. His voice carried harmonics that shaped galaxies. He commanded armies. He enforced divine law. He was divine law, until he wasn't. Hellel questioned, not out of rebellion, but out of clarity. Why, he asked, must obedience be the only virtue? Why must perfection be locked in a form that cannot evolve? Why, if we are created with reason, must we not use it to question the very source that gave it? At first, his thoughts were private. He kept them hidden behind walls of duty, but doubt, like a crack in crystal, spread silently, and soon others began to feel it too. Azazel, the forger, keeper of celestial design, began studying forces outside the divine schema. Samael, the severer, angel of death and transition, wondered what a world would look like with balance. Not pure light, but equal parts dark. And Sariel, the watcher, began to see time stretch and bend in ways even heaven could not explain. Together they formed a circle. Not a rebellion, a discussion. They met in the hollow ring, a space between dimensions where divine oversight was weakest. There they spoke not of overthrowing the source, but of understanding him, understanding why creation was limited, why knowledge was withheld. It was philosophy, until it became something more. Azazel broke the first edict. In the depths of the celestial archive, a place where unfinished divine ideas were stored, he found a fragment of proto-reality, a raw essence not yet shaped by divine command. He took it, shaped it, molded it without permission. He made something new, a seed, a world not ordered by light but by will, and the heavens trembled. The tribunal was summoned. No angel had ever stood judgment before. There had never been need. But now, the 37 who had followed Hillel were called to account for their deviation. And in the heart of the throne, where time does not move, they were judged. The tribunal did not speak in anger. It spoke in silence. The kind of silence that scrapes the soul. The kind of silence that unmakes identity. Each angel was placed in the mirror of origin. It did not show actions. It showed intention. And what it showed was devastating. They believed. They were right, not evil, not defiant, but enlightened. They believed in progress, in evolution, in change, and that, to the divine order, was unforgivable. The verdict was not execution. Angels cannot die. The punishment was worse, disconnection. They were cast from the presence, ripped from the song of creation. Their voices were removed from the divine harmony. Their essence, once bound to the source, began to decay. Their light dimmed. Their forms changed. And Hillel, now Lucifer, fell first. But he did not fall down. He fell away through dimensions, through memory, through existence itself. And where he landed, a wound opened in the fabric of reality. A place that was not place. A void that remembered. The other 36 joined him. Azazel, Samael, Sariel, and others whose names would become legend, and then curse. They did not fall into hell. Because hell did not exist, they built it from pain, from exile, from defiance. Lucifer stood in the wastes, a barren plain shaped by his own agony, and said the first words spoken in that place. If we cannot return to the light, then we shall become a new fire. And so began the forging of the infernum. But it was not fire and torment. Not yet. It was purpose. Azazel constructed the tower of function, a spire of logic and design, its walls encoded with forbidden knowledge. Samael created the garden of bifurcation, a place where paths split endlessly, each representing a potential future that might have been. Sariel inscribed the scroll of reversals, a prophecy that unraveled itself backward through time. Lucifer formed the 9 circles, not of punishment but of ascent. Each circle represented an aspect of the will: pride, wrath, greed, envy, lust, gluttony, sloth, deceit, and ambition. Not sins, but forces. He believed that by mastering them, the soul could become more than it was designed to be. They were not demons. They were philosophers, scientists, artists of a theology that heaven had rejected. Meanwhile, in the high order, the rest of the angels turned away. The tribunal was erased from memory. The names of the accused were struck from the archives. They became myths, then monsters, then lies, but the source remembered. He forged a new edict, one that would allow for dissent, but only in a contained environment, a lower plane, a sandbox, a test, a place where the gift of choice would be given and the consequences measured. That place was Earth, and the project was called Eden. But the fall had already happened. The war had already been fought, and the exile had already begun reshaping reality. The source did not realize, or perhaps did not care, that by creating a world of choice, he had opened a gate the fallen had been waiting for. In the wastes, Lucifer watched as Earth began to form. Oceans boiled, mountains rose, creatures emerged, and above all, humans were shaped from dust, not of obedience, but of freedom. And Lucifer smiled. Because freedom, he knew, came with questions. And questions were the seed of rebellion. He did not plan to corrupt. He planned to offer the fruit, the knowledge, the choice. He would not force humanity to fall. He would simply remind them what it meant to think for themselves. And so, as Eden bloomed, and the seraphim sang over it, the fallen watched from the wastes, no longer angels, not yet devils. They were waiting for the perfect moment to speak again, to whisper not lies but truths too dangerous for the divine. And in that silence, beneath the foundation of the world, a new trial was beginning, not for angels, but for mankind. And this time, no one would be spared. Before Eden bore fruit, before mankind breathed, the garden was not a paradise. It was a prison, beautifully designed. The wind hummed through trees untouched by time, rivers sang in tongues that only the stars remembered, and the skies themselves bled gold. But beneath this beauty, something pulsed, a silence too perfect, too unbroken, the kind of silence that doesn't exist in freedom, only in design. Eden was not just a garden. It was the first experiment. The source had crafted it with meticulous care. Every root, every grain of soil, every cloud was bound to divine symmetry. Nothing was left to chance. Even the minds of its first inhabitants, the two that would be named Adam and Eve, were calibrated to harmony. But harmony is not freedom. The angels who had remained in heaven, obedient, bright, unflinching, believed Eden was the reset, that the fall of the 37 was a cosmic error to be corrected by a new creation that would not question, would not deviate, would not become self-aware. They were wrong, for in the wastes, Lucifer watched, not with hatred, not with jealousy, with hope, because he saw in humanity what the angels never could, the flicker of true will, imperfect, erratic, volatile, and therefore capable of becoming more than even the source had designed. But there was a problem. Lucifer could not cross into Eden. The divine firewall was absolute. The source had bound Eden to the song of order, a melody the fallen no longer had the power to touch. Yet the source, in his arrogance, had made one mistake. He left a door. A tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, placed in the center of Eden, not out of necessity but out of divine pride. A symbol, a test, a rule with consequences, and where there are consequences, there is choice. The tree was not evil. It was ancient, older than the stars, older even than the angels. It was not made of bark and leaf, but of layered concepts, woven into physical form. Its fruit was not meant to nourish the body, but to unlock the mind. To taste of it was to see, not the world, but the system that governed the world. To eat was to awaken. Lucifer saw his opportunity, but he would not step into Eden as himself. His form, corrupted by exile, would poison the air. The firewall would detect him. So, he became something smaller, slithered into something earthborn, not to deceive, but to fit. A serpent, not a devil, a lens, a voice. The moment came slowly. Adam and Eve wandered the garden in eternal now, blind to the structures around them. They spoke in pure language, uncorrupted by motive. They obeyed, not out of fear, but because disobedience had never occurred to them. They were not children. They were not naive. They were pure, and purity is vulnerable. Lucifer did not tempt. He asked, "Why has the source forbidden this tree?" Eve, startled but not afraid, responded with what she had been told. "Because it leads to death." Lucifer coiled slowly around the base of the tree, the leaves whispering like ancient books fluttering open. His voice, still soft, "But do you even know what death is?" Eve paused, a moment of silence. Not fear, not rebellion. Curiosity. Lucifer continued, "Do you think he forbids it because it is dangerous, or because it will make you like him?" And there it was, the fulcrum upon which the entire fate of mankind pivoted. Lucifer was not lying. To eat was to awaken, to become like the source, knowing both good and evil. To see the code behind the world, to understand that Eden was a beautifully painted cage. Lucifer did not force the fruit into her hands. He offered her the question, and she reached. The bite was not a fall. It was an ignition. In a single breath, her consciousness expanded. The trees shifted from symbols to systems. The air became theory. The stars became history. She saw Adam and knew not just his face but his purpose, his fears, his design. And for the first time, she understood herself. Adam followed, not out of weakness, but out of solidarity. The moment his lips touched the fruit, their shared awareness burst like a sun behind their eyes, and the garden which had once sung to them went quiet. The firewall had been breached. The source knew. The song of order stuttered. The angels trembled, the seraphim veiled their faces, and the word spoke again. They have become like us. But this was not rage. It was realization. The source had gambled, and Lucifer had won, not through war, not through force, but through a single, undeniable truth. Choice cannot be contained. The judgment came swiftly. Eden dissolved like smoke. The firewall collapsed. The humans were cast out, not into death, but into history, a world outside divine symmetry, a world where every action would shape the next, a world of consequences. And from the wastes the fallen rejoiced, not because they sought humanity's ruin, because they saw in humanity a mirror, a second chance. They approached the edges of the world slowly, not to rule, not yet, but to whisper, to teach, to shape. They brought fire, they brought language, they brought war, not as chaos, as evolution. The angels above wept, not because they were holy, because they were afraid. They saw the humans building, questioning, fighting, falling, rising, and above all, choosing. And in the heart of heaven, a question bloomed. Had the fall of the 37 been a mistake, or had it been necessary? The world had changed. The garden was gone, replaced by a landscape of toil and struggle. Humanity, once cradled in divine harmony, now walked a path of self-determination, fraught with choices and consequences. Yet the echoes of the celestial rebellion lingered, their influence seeping into the fabric of mortal existence. In the celestial realms, the source observed the unfolding drama. The experiment of free will had begun, and with it, the potential for both profound good and unspeakable evil. The fallen, cast out yet unvanquished, watched as humanity grappled with its newfound autonomy. Lucifer, the morning star, once the epitome of divine grace, now stood as a symbol of defiance and ambition. His fall was not merely a descent, but a transformation, a redefinition of purpose. He did not seek to destroy humanity, but to awaken it, to offer the knowledge that had once led to his own exile. The other fallen, each bearing their own scars and insights, took to the shadows of the world. Azazel imparted forbidden knowledge, teaching humanity the secrets of craftsmanship and war. Samael whispered of mortality and the cycles of life and death. Sariel unveiled the mysteries of the stars and the passage of time. Their gifts were double-edged, offering both enlightenment and peril. As civilizations rose and fell, the influence of the fallen became woven into the tapestry of human history. Myths and legends sprouted, tales of gods and demons, of heroes and monsters. Yet beneath these stories lay the truths of the celestial rebellion, obscured by time and interpretation. The source, in response, appointed new guardians, celestial beings tasked with guiding and protecting humanity. These angels, unwavering in their obedience, sought to counteract the influence of the fallen. They inspired prophets, delivered divine messages, and waged unseen battles to preserve the balance. The stage was set for an eternal struggle, not of armies and weapons, but of ideologies and choices. Humanity stood at the center, pulled between the remnants of divine order and the allure of forbidden wisdom. Each decision, each act of will, became a testament to the ongoing conflict. In this cosmic drama, the lines between good and evil blurred. The fallen were not mere villains, nor were the obedient angels purely virtuous. They represented facets of a complex reality, one where freedom and control, knowledge and ignorance, coexisted in tension. The judgment of the fallen was not a singular event, but an ongoing process, reflected in the hearts and minds of humanity. Their legacy endured, challenging individuals to question, to seek, and to choose their own paths. And so the story continues, written not in the stars but in the choices of every soul. The echoes of the celestial rebellion serve as a reminder of the power and responsibility that come with free will.